is reactions. So if I say something you think is right, you can give me a thumbs up. All right. Okay. And that'll go away in a little bit. Now, if you go back to the participants, while you still have the chat box up, go to participants and click on that. That'll give you all your participants will now show up on the right-hand side. You'll have to scroll down a little to see them all. And then, so the bottom is the chat box. The upper part is your participant list. And in between those two, chats that have been sent out will show up when they're chats to everyone, okay? And then the last thing I want to say is up near the top right-hand corner of the screen is what's called speaker view. If you're in the gallery view, if you see all the tiles with all of us, there's 18 of us. If you click, it says speaker view, right? So if you click on that, it will take you to the actual speaker view. And if you click on it, you'll see that now what comes up is, and probably my internet is terrible, but what should come up is it should be a picture of me talking, and then all the little tiles of the rest of the people be along the top. If you go up and you click on that square with the 9 dots, that'll take you back to the tile view. Okay? So now, one last thing. Over on the right-hand side, where the list of participants are, there's 3 buttons on the bottom. One is mute me, that'll turn your microphone off. And the other one is raise hand. If you click on the raise hand, Bob will see an icon of your raised hand next to your name, and that's his indication that you have a question or you'd like to be called on to say something. So our default mode is going to be to keep our microphones off, so there's not a lot of background interference. And if you want to talk, use the raise hand symbol to indicate to Bob that you want to talk, and wait till he calls on you to unmute your microphone and speak. Okay? I'm gonna stop talking now. Is everybody generally clear on this? Just
let's everybody do a thumbs up
okay.
so you can see if you know where that is. Who's going to be the last one?
Yep.
Probably me. No, sorry, Walt, that won't cut it. You got to find the button. Don,
It's
really,
on
really
the lower.
go to the bottom.
On the bottom, far right is reactions. Click on reactions, and you'll have a choice between clapping hands and thumbs up. If you're not scrolling over the bar on the bottom, it will disappear.
He's on a laptop, which may be a little more difficult if he doesn't have a mouse. That's okay. That's all right.
Okay.
Don, really excellent job summarizing the controls. Really nice. Thank you very much. Good job. So let's maybe go to the agenda, which again, you guys have seen once before, but we'll pull it back up again. So I'm not exactly sure what the announcements are. We've got COVID-19 webinars and YouTube videos obviously listed here. Rod, did you have any particular comment on those topics? You got to unmute yourself.
COVID-19, I put on there for webinars. Usually somebody has webinars going on, and the YouTubes for any information. You got the Big Fat Bee Man and a bunch of other ones, but most of it's for humor or whatever. But it's something to do during this COVID-19 virus that's going on.
Does
Other
anyone,
than that, I don't know anything.
okay, does anyone have any webinars or YouTube channels or folks that you would like to share your thoughts? And I see Laura's hand going up. So Laura, take it away.
Somebody unmutes me. I'm unmuted. I would just suggest people check out the DICE Laboratory Center for Honeybee Studies. They're posting lots of interesting things. They just posted a whole protocol they've developed for anybody who's interested, who's claiming income for tax purposes. There's a whole worksheet on reporting taxes for beekeepers. They're really trying to make use of the remote access to do a lot of things. I guess, most of the in-person web programs that we went to or we've recommended over the past few years are, not happening in person. So, and I don't know of any that are being scheduled for the next 6 months. I think everything's pretty well been, hey, we got a peeper in the back there behind Barry. Anyway.
And I think I forwarded that information from the DICE labs. And if I'm wrong, somebody tell me, to all the Chautauqua honey beekeepers.
Yeah.
So you should have a link to it anyway, if you want to follow it. It may be a little circuitous or something.
I don't know.
Circuitous.
Yeah, we're just going to have to make,
Anyway,
we have to make use of whatever remote access we have to participate in events. And many of them will be just like this. It's going to be Zoom or it's going to be a webinar presentation. That's it.
over and out. 10-4, Eleanor. And if you're a fireside theater person, meet you on the funway.
Rod, you're still muted. We couldn't hear you.
I think I got it. Nancy Callahan has her hand up over in the participant. Oh, she turned it off. Okay.
I don't know how it got turned on.
Well,
Nope, just
that's
listening.
fine.
Happy to be here.
I guess we'll continue on, Bob.
Yeah, help if I unmute myself. I was going to say I've got some blossoms on our apple trees that are getting ready to bloom. And of course, dandelions have been out for a couple of weeks now, right? But I don't know a lot of the other plants, so I'm not really familiar with the names. Does anybody have any knowledge of what is blooming? Our expert botanist is not here with us, who keeps that standing totals, running total of what's blooming.
Allegheny serviceberry. I don't know if bees go for that or not.
Is that the tree, Nance, right? Serviceberry tree? Yeah.
Yeah. Shadlow.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Our cherry blossoms got blasted by the cold and the wind and the snow. So we've got pears blooming right now, but the cherries just got blasted. And I don't know what will happen to the other.
Apples and stuff.
Apples haven't bloomed yet, so they might be okay.
Yeah, I think even though we had some really hard frosts the last 3 or 4 days, I think the apple blossoms are going to be all right. At least in my yard anyway.
Same here. I'm a little higher than you, Bob, but it's, yeah, we're not ready to bloom quite yet anyhow. So
Mhm, mhm.
I think we're good.
It seems like we're about maybe a week late,
Yeah,
something like
we-
that.
half. I think so too.
Yeah. Not as far back as I kind of imagined, given how, snowy and cold April was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, any other comments about what's blooming?
Dead nettle. Purple dead nettle, I've got that all over the place here.
Huh.
Okay,
We have
Skunk cabbage.
skunk cabbage. We have Japanese honeysuckle too. That's just
Right
about
on the
ready to
edge.
pop.
mhm.
So that's looking good.
Don?
He's still muted.
Skunk cabbage. Do they only stink when they bloom?
I've wondered that.
I notice it more when they're younger plants, but I could be wrong too. I don't know. If you probably stepped on a skunk cabbage now, I would think you'd probably also smell it. But to me, they're blooming. They're among the first plants that I see blooming back when there's snow on the ground yet. So I would think by now they'd almost be done blooming.
Man, muted.
The
Yes.
reason I ask is I've got something near my house.
Red.
It's either a skunk that sprays all day, every day, or else it's something like skunk cabbage. I'm trying to figure out the problem I have.
I don't know if leeks are up yet. Leeks
They are.
can emanate a pretty strong garlicky, onion, skunky flavor odor too.
They're almost done.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ours are just
We
about
found
done.
that too. So it's a good time to start harvesting because they're as big as they're gonna get.
Yeah.
And you can still find them,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. But when I was a kid, skunk cabbage, the only thing I remember about that is when you kicked a plant and it stunk. So I don't know where that was in the bloom cycle, but anyway, and I know when I come home, my boots smelled.
Again, my experience has been that they're blooming, back in even March sometimes.
Yes.
So I would think by now that should be done.
They're about a foot and a
These-
half now.
Say it again, Nancy?
They're about a foot and a half tall now.
Hmm.
It was Allegheny State Park yesterday, and they're, about a foot and a half tall. And we were wondering what they turn into. I don't see any flower on them, but I don't know what they look like later in the summer.
With
Did you
it,
stomp on them and crush them?
She wouldn't do that.
No, seriously, to see if they still smelled.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to do them all. I mean, just like one plant, I'm not
Okay.
saying crush them all.
I think the flower is in that initial growth, that pointy growth coming out of the ground. If you look
Oh.
inside there, that's where the flower is.
Oh,
So you're not going to necessarily see it now. I don't
okay.
think.
Hmm.
And by the way, I apologize. I meant to have us go around the room like the Brady Bunch and just kind of maybe introduce ourselves, because I know there's at least one person who's over there. Brian Fleischman, at least on my screen, who's new to the club. Everybody else, I think, is a member of the club. So could we just take maybe a couple seconds just to introduce ourselves, where we're from, and you
Okay.
know, why we got interested in beekeeping or how many hives we have, just something real quick. So can I start with Laura?
Sure. But Laura and Dennis, we come as a unit here. Dennis and Laura LaMonica from Panama, and currently we have 25 colonies. We're down, had a catastrophic loss last year. We're building back. So that's, we produce honey, and what else do we want to say about us? Anything else?
Laura does all the hard work. And I point.
Well, Laura and Dennis were you kind of like co-presidents? I wasn't really exactly sure what the,
Oh, I was president for a while. Laura was president for a while, then I was president for a while.
We kind of swapped off.
And then we just like dumped it on Rod.
well, when I first started with the club, these two guys were really kind of the cohesive aspects of the club, kind of taking and providing a lot of good information with every meeting. And so I don't think I've known any other president other than you guys. And then of course, Rod, which we'll hear about in just a minute, is the current president.
We should maybe mention, just out of fairness and courtesy, Sam Radisella, who was president for years before.
10 or 15 years, a long time.
A long time. And Sam really was, I don't know if he personally, but he was kind of what grounded the organization from probably 1986 to current, until we started, becoming active in it, and kind of grounded the club. And so he really kind of persevered with it. And I think Walt probably would have some more information on it, because I wasn't part of it. But when I came into the organization, I think there were 6 members.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was probably 2009 to 2010, something like that. So, and Walt, I think Walt can probably.
Walt has the history.
Yeah, Walt had more history than I do with it. So
let's go to Walt next. I'm going to unmute you, Walt. So you should be able to talk now. Go ahead. Can you?
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. My recollection of the Chautauqua County Beekeepers started, I don't know what the year was, but it was up in Fredonia, New York. My brother Bob and I went up there, and we met at a bowling alley. And I forget who the fellow's name was. We went up there for a second or third meeting, and he says, well, the bowling alley is closed, but you can come to my house and we'll meet over there. And so Bob said, what's wrong? Can't you find a meeting place here? And he says, no, the bowling alley won't let us in anymore. So Bob talked the extension service up on North Main Street in Jamestown, and they offered us a room. And we're up there until they sold the building here just last year or the year before. And Bob ran the meetings, and he used to stop at one of the bakeries. He'd buy the day-old donuts at reduced price, and somebody bring in coffee, so we'd have coffee and donuts. He also traveled to many of the beekeepers meetings, and he would video the speaker, and he'd bring the video to our meetings so that we could see what the speaker at all these other meetings was talking about. He did one time go to Hawaii and visited a queen beater in Hawaii. And he told me several times that he was at one of the meetings and somebody said, Bob, can I borrow your video on Hawaiian beekeeping? He said, sure, but be sure to bring it back. Well, somewhere in some closet or drawer or something, his video is there because he said it never came back to him. And when Bob got kind of tired, Sam Radicelli started coming to the meetings, and he told Sam, he said, I want you to take over and keep the meetings going because I'm not going to be able to do it anymore. And Sam kept them up until you've heard what happened after that.
Yeah, Walt's been a really active member in the club for many years, and as you're going to see in a little while, he always provides a show and tell. We can always depend on Walt to learn something new about beekeeping. So I'm sure that's going to be part of the meeting today. I'm going to move on to Laura Latempio. Are you there, Laura?
Oh, okay, there I go. Hi, everybody. I'm Laura, and I live in Hamburg, New York, and I had, I've got 23 beehives right now. I lost a bunch over winter, but working myself back up again. And I just started teaching a new person on how to go into hives and what to look for. So it's been exciting being able to teach people what I know.
Cool.
Oh, I can't hear you, Bob.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Laura, for that introduction. I'm going to have us go to Brian Fleischman next, who's a new member of the club.
Hi guys, I'm Brian Fleischman. I'm in Randolph, New York. I've got, I've been beekeeping for about 6 or 7 years now, and I've got 3 hives here at my house. It's actually 4 now with the swarm I caught today. And at my work, which is a school here in Randolph, I've got 2 hives there as well, which we use to kind of help teach the kids. I've got a live stream on it so that the kids can watch the hive. Yeah, that's about it.
Great, thank you. Brian was the one that used his printer, right? The 3D printer to make the entrance to the swarm trap. I think I brought to the club, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, and some of you were pretty amazed at this really cool 3D printer entrance. And he gave me a new one to try out, which we could talk more about later if you want. Pretty cool stuff. Brian's doing some really interesting stuff. He's got some really neat thoughts about beekeeping and raising bees. And so welcome, Brian.
Cool, thank you.
Sure. Dean Sprague, you're up next.
Hey, I'm Dean Sprague. My wife is in the other room on a different Zoom meeting with one of her students. So but quite often she's on with students and my kids are on, so we're used to running multiple Zoom meetings. We started 8 hives with 8 hives going into the winter. We lost 2. Actually, today, before it started to rain, between a couple of her Zoom meetings, we have 2 real strong ones. We started 3 nooks off of the 2 strong hives at about noon today. We're in Faulkner, New York. I kept bees back in high school in the late 80s and really didn't know what I was doing then, and then started back up with my family about 3 years ago.
Great, thanks, Dean. Gail.
Gail Martin. I'm up in Asheville, New York. Retired and needed a new hobby, so beekeeping is it. We started with 3 hives last fall, and we've lost 2, but the one we have is very strong. So just plugging along.
Great, thanks, Gail.
Yep.
Kate.
Hi, Kate and Dave McQuiggan. We live in Cassadaga. We started with 2 hives last year, but we're not successful. We learned a lot. We're going to be starting over again this year. So that's where we are.
Looking for some bees.
Yep.
Waiting. They're supposed to be coming soon, I hope.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dave and Kate. Kimberly.
Hi, Kim Witherow. I'm over in Mayville, New York. I went into the winter with 2 strong hives, came out thankfully with 2 strong hives, and did a split a few weeks ago. So I'm up to 3 and several swarm catchers out and hoping to increase the numbers this summer.
Great, great. Thanks, Kim.
Mhm.
Nancy.
Hi, I'm in the Randolph area up in Napoli. I have 2 top bar hives. I had 1 strong colony going into the winter and I lost them apparently pretty early because I got 4 gallons of honey off of that hive. So I'm looking for swarms. If anybody sees or has one, I will come with a box.
Okay, Nance, thank you. Don, you want to say a little bit about where you are and hives and all that good stuff?
I'm Don Huber. I'm in Cattaraugus, New York, north of Randolph. We have 1 hive, has a hive at her house, and that's also doing really well. We went into the winter with 2, we lost 1, but we're happy with the 1 we have. So, and I guess I'm the secretary of the organization for now.
Soon to be president. That's what somebody said to me.
Yeah.
Bill Gester.
Yeah, I'm in Jamestown, and about 4 years ago, I caught a couple of swarms, and Dennis and Laura helped me things out, and been doing it at 5 good hives out there right now.
Great. Great. Thanks, Bill. Barry. You're muted, Barry. There you go.
How about now?
You're good.
Hello, everyone. Barry Lindquist, Sinclairville, New York.
Hey, Barry.
Around 200 hives, a little bit more than 200 now. And I don't know if it was a mild winter or what, but this year my bees look better than ever. 7-year beekeeping.
And Barry is owner of Chautauqua Apiary.
Yes.
He's got some good queens. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
Craig.
All right, so I'm new to the area. I moved here from Albany a couple of years ago. I directed a nature center for the conservation department, similar to the ACNC out in Riverside Road. And we had hives outside. We had an indoor hive. I had 3 hives at home. And I moved away from all that, so I'm looking to reestablish now. I'm in the village of Faulkner, so I've got to be kind of careful as to how many hives I get together. I've got an empty box out there now. I'd like to fill it with something, but looking to get back in the game.
Great, great. Thanks, Craig. Great. Rod.
Yes. I got disconnected there a while ago, so I apologize for that. I hope I didn't miss too much. I live in Gary. I have 13 hives. I'm started out with 15 before the fall. So 13 is a good number for right now, I guess. Still looking to get bigger. Other than that, I'm the acting president this year, along with all the other board members. So it's I'm enjoying it. This is my 8th year now, I believe.
Thanks, Rod. Brian and Betty.
Hello.
Hi.
We're from Lander, Pennsylvania. We started the winter with 6 hives and we lost 4. The 2 that we did keep are extremely strong. As a matter of fact, so strong, I ended up putting a 3rd brood box on my number 2 hive. It's amazingly powerful. I'll be looking to split it here shortly. There was lots and lots and lots of larvae, but I didn't immediately see any fresh eggs. So I figured I was going to wait for a little bit and then re-scope for eggs and start splitting. The other survivor wasn't quite as strong as this one, so I left it be, threw a pollen patty on it, and hopefully we'll have good enough weather to rip them open this weekend and see what I've got.
Great. And we can talk more about splits too today. Thank you, Betty. And last but not least, Kevin, who can't talk, right? So he's got to do the chat thing. I don't know how hard it's going to be for him to type. Are you there, Kevin? You must be eating dinner. Well, Rod, you can probably fill us in. You and Kevin are tear out folks.
Yeah, we do tear outs. I lost connection with everybody, so I don't know where we're at. I mean, a few people were introducing themselves, so
Well,
I don't know what I missed.
Well, I was just going to say, do you know where Kevin lives? Is it Asheville? Yeah.
Yes, he lives in Asheville on Maple Street.
Okay.
Okay.
Basically, they want you to do the introduction for Kevin.
Oh, okay. The introduction for Kevin Rain. He's probably been doing bees for probably 10 years. He also, and I help him. He has 2 apiaries, one that he's starting to reconstruct. The other, I think he's, I'm not quite sure. I was just over there 2 weeks ago and I didn't count them, but they all look pretty strong.
Okay, great.
12 to 13, Kevin says. There you go.
Yeah.
So, he's,
Okay, that's great. Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourselves, and we kind of get a sense of where people are, and both geography-wise and how many hives they've got. So let's move on to the apiary report. Rod, I think that's next to your name.
yes. There was 4 of us that went up and we did a hive inspection, Dennis and Laura LaMonica. And I want to thank you all. And we all stayed our social distance, or tried to anyways. And we were all careful. We have 6 hives out of 10 there early. And the first was the 10 frame hive. I found the queen and Bob marked it. And the next hive would be hive number 8, which is down on the very end, which was our booming hive that was always mass producing. We opened that up and there was probably a dozen bees. And I look and I says, look, there's a little queen there. So there was a queen and about 2 dozen, if not a dozen. So we took one of the 3 frames, Dennis and Laura took 3 frames from one of the other hives and put into that hive, hoping to survive. Now, I went out there at 12 o'clock at lunchtime today, and everybody seems to be very happy. So I can all say that we were 6 hives strong right now, and they're all looking good. And I think maybe Dennis a little bit on the hive inspection and what she found. Dennis,
Yeah,
Laura?
we did a few splits too that day. So it's probably a little obviously early to be looking to see whether they've requeened, but hopefully we're successful in that.
Yeah, I was thinking that we were just kind of doing a triage, basically trying to make sure that we beefed up what needed to be beefed up, and then we had a cold snap. So I worry there's not a lot of forage right now. There's not a lot of, bees are pretty well shut down from flying for the past couple of weeks. So excepting intermittently. So I hope we kept them going.
Yeah, well, we'll see in another couple of weeks. Okay. Any other comments on the apiary report? Otherwise, we'll go on to the treasurer's report, which is Dennis.
One thing I'd like to say is when Laura was in there doing one inspection, that we had mites in the one hive.
Yeah, we had mites in, as we took it apart, of course, you separate the boxes and there's sometimes brood, drone brood between the boxes. It was striking that we took one apart to do the inspection and there were multiple varroa mites. So here we go again, right? Never too early to worry about mites.
Okay, let's move on to the treasurer's report.
All right, we have had $35.34 in expenses, approximately $25, $24.99 was sugar to feed the bees, and we had $10.35 in envelopes so I could send out membership cards and receipts back to people. We have received another additional $50 in dues, and Rod sold $168 in honey. So we have, right now, we have $218 to deposit that hasn't been deposited yet. But when it all is deposited, we have $3,296.97 in our account. So
great.
We're doing okay, I guess. So.
Well, better than the federal government. That's great.
And also, Laura had filed our tax return for this year too, and
thank you.
At some point in time, Laura has got to teach somebody else other than her how to file. It's a postcard return, so it's a very quick return because we're under all these other limits. But someplace along the line, Laura has to show somebody else how to do it. So
it's easy.
So at some point in time, somebody else can be doing it, because if we don't file these tax returns every year.
There's a kitty cat. Kitty cat.
Oh, if we don't file these tax returns every year, we will lose our tax exempt status.
Right. So it's real simple.
It's a postcard.
Can't hear you.
E-card. Right. Go ahead.
Basically, we have a account with the IRS and a password and you simply go onto it and you certify that you don't really have to report where your income comes from. You just have to verify that it's below a certain level, and it's a pretty self-reporting, self-claiming process. But all of that information is in a file, and whoever eventually takes this on just needs to know to do it annually so that we don't lose our tax exempt status.
Okay.
The threshold is very high. It's like $40,000 or $50,000. So, I can't imagine that our association will ever ever have that much money to report. So we just have to keep up with the annual, whatever it is, filing process.
But moving forward, the leadership of the organization has got to realize that, and if you want to keep your tax exempt status,
someone has to do it.
Somebody has to do it. It's really easy. I don't know anything about it. Laura does it in 15 minutes, but it's something that has to be passed on to the future leadership.
Okay.
So.
Rod, you had your hand up.
Yes, I also wanted to say that we still, because we didn't have the garden show, we still have 4 cases of honey. Or when we first started bottling it, $1 a bottle. And I think probably we should probably do the same thing. If anybody's interested in bottled club honey, 1-pound bottles with our label on it, it's $7 a bottle. I got 4 cases, 24 bottles to a case. So if anybody's interested, you can contact me.
And the idea is, Rod, if they buy it from you at $7, they can sell it for 14 if they want.
They can sell it for whatever they want to sell it for. That's up to them.
Okay. So again, if anyone's interested in some honey, whether it's for your own use or if you'd like to sell it and help the club out by kind of lowering the stockpile, Rod would be happy to give you some. Okay, great. The next item is old business. I don't know what old business is. Okay, we'll move on to new business.
Well, hang
Wait,
on.
hang on.
Okay, go ahead.
I didn't raise my hand.
How
Here it
did you do
is. Here's my hand.
Okay, I see it.
How did you do that?
I unmuted me. So
How did you unmute yourself?
it's over here.
Oh my God.
Anyway,
Okay.
So I was thinking about, I guess we have to have a discussion about, we've had a plan to do some sesquicentennial activities. And I, considering the COVID stuff, I guess I would like to just have a discussion about, is there any, I don't know, I guess my personal opinion is I don't think it makes sense to put a lot of effort into planning something for September, October. We don't know if groups will be able to get together then. But I guess I just want to put on the record some discussion about how the COVID stuff is affecting our sesquicentennial, and if there's any other way we can recognize it that's COVID appropriate. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just to kind of bring everybody up to speed, back in, gosh, when was it we met?
January.
February?
Well, January, I think.
January, okay. There was like a little subcommittee that met, and Laura Latempio was instrumental in putting together some designs. I had reached out to what's his name? My mind is going here. About coming and possibly speaking to the group.
Tom Seeley.
Thank you, Tom Seeley, of course. And he's unavailable until next year. So we did, and a lot of you already know this, but Brian, I know you are probably unaware of that. We had some ideas about how we were going to celebrate our 150th birthday, one of which was to have a presence at the home show, maybe bring some speakers in. And we had lots of wonderful ideas, but as Laura said, we got stopped in our tracks in mid-March, and we don't want this to like die, of course, but we can't do a whole lot in terms of public celebration. There was some thought, and Walt had brought this up to me, and we had talked about this as an executive committee too, about maybe putting together a narrative of the history of the club. And I'm certainly willing to kind of work on that a little bit once my semester is finished, which is actually tomorrow at 3 p.m. So I'll be happy to kind of, take some of the information that Dennis has kindly posted on our website. There's some really good stuff there. And maybe if nothing else, we can toss out, a few drafts of whatever that might be, and then we could submit that to Bee Culture or American Bee Journal, right? And I think they would be pretty excited about publicizing that for us. So I guess that's one thing we could do, right? Walt's raising or shaking his head. Yeah. So if anybody is interested in being part of that process of trying to maybe draft a, I don't know how long an article it would have to be, but that's something that I guess I would be willing to at least start to work on.
And the other activities, we just move to next year and just call it the Sesquicentennial +1.
Yeah, something catchy. I like it, man. It's good. In fact, I think you should be chairperson.
Right.
Well, you were part of the group, right? We had maybe 6 or 7 people that were interested in doing that. So we'll resurrect that. I'm sure. I hope we can eventually get back to some normalcy. Even if we have to sit 6 feet away, we're going to hopefully get back. It does sound like, and this perhaps is new business, that the picnic is probably going to be off. But back to old business. Any other comments about the sesquicentennial celebration?
Yes, so I think I've got my hand raised. I don't know how to
Oh,
do it,
sorry.
but
Sorry, Craig.
anyway, I'm not a real internet guy, but something ought to appear in the Post Journal.
Right. Absolutely. I agree. We could, whatever we put together could be submitted to multiple periodicals, if you will. Yeah, absolutely. Dean, you're muted. I just unmuted you. Go ahead. No, you're muted again.
Yep. I'm here, I guess.
No, wait.
I said, go ahead.
I thought Dean had his hand up. Dean, you are muted. We can't hear you. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, I think, if you're doing something like you said, bee culture or such, but maybe if it could be done, broken up into shorter segments for the Post Journal and like do a series in the Post Journal. And also, Dennis Webster's always looking for stuff for his Farm Bureau radio show, and that can be done on the phone, so you could do some interviews with him and local beekeepers on the phone. I'm sure he'd be more than willing to help us out with that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Dennis, do you want to say?
Yeah, I submitted some stuff to Dennis Webster about the maybe I said this before about the notification Rod sent out saying we were going to cancel because of coronavirus, and I attached that to that email, the 1918 article that we sent to I think it was the Evening Journal, Jamestown Evening Journal, about the Chautauqua County Beekeepers Association had canceled the December meeting because of the Spanish flu, and he was interested in that. I don't know where it ever went from there, but there's been some. I've had some dialogue with Dennis Webster in the Post Journal or Dennis Webster on WJTN, and with the Post Journal about doing some stuff. So
they're very receptive. We just
they're
have to
very
show up.
receptive. Yeah.
We just have to do it.
Yeah. So I think they're all on board with all this stuff, because it's all not only historically interesting. It's just it's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's history repeating itself kind of
Right.
stuff. So
I'm going to go to Walt next.
Yeah.
Walt, you are unmuted. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. I think that all of our announcements for our meetings should be in the Post Journal. They used to be in there, and it was kind of nice to open up the paper on a Tuesday or Wednesday and see that on Thursday we were going to have our meeting. And I think it would be nice to have something regarding this meeting in the Post Journal and within a couple of days that we had our first internet meeting. So, and that article that our meeting was canceled due to the flu, we'd never know about it because it just happened to be there. We weren't around to know it. We just found it, somebody found it in the old paper. So if you don't get this thing into the paper, you have no written evidence of what's going on. And, you know, a lot of these things get tossed in the old dresser, and you pull the paper out of the bottom of the dresser and you find something that happened 50 or 70 years ago. And that's how those articles come back to life again. So if we don't get them in the paper in the first place, you know, we have no written history. And I'd also like to see an article sent to the B magazines about our first internet meeting too. I think they would like that, because they're always interested in articles on the local beekeepers meetings, along with all the other things they usually put through on their magazine.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Walt. And just so you all know, I am recording this, so we're going to submit this to YouTube or something. Maybe we can all be famous. I don't know. We'll see. But no, that's a good point. It does boil down to, you know, a few people or, you know, whomever to kind of lead the charge. So, you know, as I said, I'm happy to work on some of this stuff. We could do a screenshot of this and send it into the Post Journal and probably get an article, because there isn't a heck of a lot in there now. I read it every day and it takes me about 2 minutes. So a nice, interesting, informative article would be good, especially like a Sunday feature or something, right? Yeah.
Really?
Okay. Anybody else have any comments on old business before we move on to new business?
Yeah, I have a thought about the screenshot. I guess I would ask before you do that, does anybody here object? Would anybody here object to having their image and their name, because our names are here, right? So would anybody object to being in a screenshot?
You know, I wouldn't do that without talking to all of you. It was just a thought I had, you know.
No, I think it's a great idea.
But you're absolutely right. That's a good point you make. We want to make sure that everyone is okay with this.
I'm in the witness protection program, you know, so I
Right.
don't really want to be identified by.
Yeah, no, that's a fair assessment.
Someone's going to find me. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But it is a matter of
yeah,
permission, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Laura Lotiempo is a silhouette, so nobody's going to know who she is.
Right. I think it's Darth Vader. I think that's who that's there. Oh no. Okay. All right. So anything else under old business? I'm not trying to like rush us, but we do want to keep things moving along, I guess. How about new business? Anybody have any items on new business? You know, go ahead, Nancy.
I guess I would like to see something develop in terms of a swarm hotline. We talked about a swarm hotline. Maybe it's just a matter of posting to Facebook, or I don't know, but I sure would like to know about swarms, and I'd like to see this build somehow.
I agree with you. You know, I've mentioned this over the years too, that as I got swarms, I was happy to supply that to members, and I've done that actually.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to do that. But you do all realize when you go to buy a package of bees, it's 150 or 200 bucks. You know, they're expensive. So I'll just, you know, I'll charge 100, not a problem. No, I'm just kidding. I'm happy to give people, hi, I have swarms if I can find them. But it's a great idea. You know, if people have swarms that they're not going to utilize, then it would be nice if members would like some. But everybody has to understand that if I call you and I say I've got a swarm in my backyard, you need to come now, not Monday afternoon. So I mean, you got to really be ready to move and get them when the going's good. Now I have trapped swarms and held them for people, and that's not a big deal either, because I love catching swarms. And Brian shaking his head because he's caught a lot, I know. But excellent point. And how to do that is a good question.
Well, I'm not a Facebook person at all, but is there a way to just, you know, I've got a swarm posted on Facebook, and is there a way to set up personal alerts or something like that? So I could, I could hear that there's a swarm and give a call,
Well,
or
we've
maybe
got,
automate-
we've got 17 of us here at this
I did.
meeting, and so
That's right.
that could be a start anyway. And I was talking to our friend Sue Gordon Brainerd a couple weeks ago, and I gave her my first swarm that I caught April 25th.
Mhm.
And you're number 2, Nance. So I'll be happy to, if I get
Thanks.
lucky enough to find one.
Yeah.
So is there anybody else in the meeting here that would like swarms? Or
Well, let me just say, can I say 2 things?
sure.
One is, I think, Walt has encouraged us almost every spring to post something in the newspapers about what is a swarm, and to do outreach and public education about swarming. And we've done that in the past. And in the past, we've been able to say people should contact the cooperative extension, and then they disseminate the information to whoever in the club is managing swarm referrals. So we can't do that anymore. And I guess one question is, if we want to do something to educate the community about swarms, what they are and what you can do, who's the contact person for that? And I guess the other part is that not everybody's on Facebook.
Yeah.
Rod doesn't do Facebook, and other people don't as well. So I don't know if the Facebook is the right solution
Right.
for everybody.
Or let me add to that. For some reason, we are still, Dennis and Laura, but Dennis is still the contact for a cooperative extension for swarms. And I've gotten a couple calls this last week about swarms. And this has happened over the last few years. I don't know why I'm the de facto contact, but I am. Anyway, I try to contact somebody that is in the area. If the swarms in Fredonia, I go through our list of people that are in Fredonia that are interested in swarms, and North County that collect swarms, and if that's in Jamestown, or whatever. So I try to distribute it. Distribute it at that rate, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's equitable either. But for some reason, like I said, I'm wind up being the de facto contact. So
So you're the hotline guy.
well, kind of, but I try to just spread it out so
Sure.
no one person gets all the calls, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
There's probably a better way.
but there's probably a better way, and there's no there's no centralized a group of contacts that are people who are willing to collect
Yeah, we
swarms.
don't really know who they are.
So really becomes a kind of a crapshoot on some of this stuff.
Mhm.
It's just
Some of those are-
go ahead.
Well, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, and it's logistically a nightmare because it's nobody's job to be keeping track of, where these swarms are and then calling people and asking, hey, are you interested in getting one? Because they may not be. I'm just curious, of the 18 people who are here, if you could just show me by putting your hand up how many swarms you would be interested in. If I could get you one tomorrow or 4 tomorrow, how many of you would be interested? I'm just curious.
No.
Tim wants 5, and Walt wants 2, and Dean wants 5, and 1 and 1 and 1. Okay, so there's an interest out there.
Bob, are you still there? Am I still online?
Yes.
But the real question is, almost all of these swarms are cutouts.
Oh.
They're not swarms. Okay.
Okay.
I should have made that more appropriate. So I mean, people don't call about. They do call about getting a swarm. That most
Hanging in a tree.
Yeah, hanging in a tree. But most of them are cutouts. And so those are the people that we need to keep track of who wants to do cutouts. everybody wants to go shake a branch, you know? That's
Well, no-
easy.
Well, nobody wants to do cutouts.
Hi, Adrian.
Nobody wants to, well,
Hi,
that's
Adrian.
not true. That's not true. There are people that do want to do cutouts. And you need to know, like Walt used to do tons of cutouts. He is scaling back a little bit. You know, Rod and Kevin are doing cutouts. And back before that, Kevin and Tom
Newton.
Newton and
I can't remember his first name. John.
I can't remember. Anyway, they used to do cutouts like crazy. So you have to be careful on, you know, who you're referring who to. So
Well, yeah, and the person, the person
Anyway.
doing the cutout is probably gonna not want to necessarily give it away, I would imagine. They're gonna want to.
no, that's true. But
So-
they also have charges in it, you know.
Yeah, right. So I will re-ask my question. Of those of you who wanted swarms, how many of you would be willing to pay for a swarm? You know, and okay, a few would, and others I think probably not. So, yeah. Yeah.
I would be interested in going and learning how to do a cutout. I've never done one before. I'd be really interested in learning.
Well, then I think you should talk to Kevin and Rod. At least those are the folks I know who've done quite a bit. And I know, again, Walt has done them over the years too. It's very laborious and time consuming, and you need equipment and maybe even insurance. And it's not something you just walk into blindly, I think, right? It involves some commitment and money and time, and it's sometimes you don't know what you're getting yourself into initially, right? It can be a major project. Yeah.
How does that usually work out? Do people get viable colonies from a cutout?
Yeah, you can.
Wow.
Sure. Sure. Yep, absolutely. I'd rather catch one out of a tree myself, but okay, Walt wants to say something. Go ahead, Walt.
Yes, cutouts. Now, I've been doing I was doing cutouts for years. I'm a little bit too old now, and my wife doesn't want me to climb a ladder. But cutouts, let's say, first of all, they are laborious. Yes, you have to open up a building, open up whatever they are, open up a tree trunk if they're in a tree. You have to, if they're in a building, you know, a residence, first of all, you've got to make sure that the owner understands that you're not a contractor, you're not a finished contractor. It's not going to look as good when you get through as when it started. And let them know how much you're going to do on it and what they're responsible for afterwards. And basically what I would tell them was, I'm going to come in and take the bees out. I'll try to get out as much of the comb, and I'll try to make sure that there's not that much residue there to attract the bees. But I would tell them then that to have their carpenter close it up and make sure that he's got it all closed up. If there are cracks, take some wire screen and fold it over and push it in the cracks and put caulking over the top of the cracks. Don't just put caulking in the cracks, because the caulking will shrink and the crack will be there and the insects will get back in. I also would tell them that, you know, I come out here and I do a service to you. I know the bees are valuable, but I can collect a swarm for nothing and shake it off a tree, where if I got to cut a hole in the house, why, that means an hour or 2 hours of work. So, and what would a pesticide exterminator come up? You know, they wouldn't go up there and just squirt some pesticide in there and say, well, we'll see you next year if you have some problems. They'll charge you. So you've got to talk to them intelligently and find out how much they're willing to pay and how much you feel that your time and energy is worth. The bees are worth something, but on the other hand, every swarm of bees is not worth $50 to the swarm collector. I mean, I know I got better things to do in a Saturday afternoon than run and tear apart a house. So if I'm going to do that, I'm going to do it because the homeowner needs my services. I don't need the bees. So you've got to be willing to do that, but you also have to have a little bit of knowledge about construction and know where the bees are likely to be and how much is going to be involved, so that you don't get halfway through a project and say, well, it's beyond my scope, and you walk away with all the bees just flying away. So I do think that we do need people who are willing to go out and open up the building. A lot of times it's not that difficult. There is occasionally a difficult one, but I think if some of these beekeepers who would like to get into it, if they could link up with somebody who is now taking out the bees and show them what they're doing, we all know that the bees have a hole and they go through a hole and then they build some comb. So if they were able to get exposed to it, they would be a little bit more confident to go out next time and pull the board off a barn where they're not going to damage much and take out a swarm of bees, get a little bit of experience like that. I think they would develop a talent, if you want to call it, to extract the bees. But I do think that we do need to encourage beekeepers to get into that mode. I mean, there are only so many wild swarms hanging on a tree, but there are just as many in a building, and the ones that are in a building are the nuisance that the beekeepers, the building owner appreciates, rather than you just shaking the bees off a swarm.
Yeah. I'm gonna stop you there real quick. I don't mean to be impolite, but I wanted to get to a question that Betty, I think, was asking, and Brian, about what advice do you give someone who asks if you can do a cutout, but then they tell you they've attempted spraying the bees to get rid of them. My sense is that if they've sprayed for the bees, I'm not going to be wasting my time for a cutout. Is that fair to assume that to be the case, Walt?
Well, I think that I have taken out the bees where they've claimed that they've sprayed them to, and I vacuumed out the bees and I put them into a hive. And if there were some that were killed by the pesticide, they floated at the bottom of the hive and the bees carried them out, or I've swept them off the bottom board. But I haven't had that much problem. Of course, I haven't been doing cutouts for the last 5 years, so that makes a difference too. But
yeah,
I do think that if you approach it from the idea that you're helping the homeowner out, and you're going to get paid a little bit for your services, not as much as a contractor would get for tearing it down and repairing it, but just you being there and evacuating the bees. A lot of the homeowners are halfway carpenters too, that can plug up the hole and re-wallpaper the wall. So I think that once you get the insects out of there, well, a lot of times they're satisfied. So they should be willing to pay you a little bit for your service. So I think that I wouldn't say, no, I'm not going to do it. I would come and look at it. I realize that, the honey is not going to be acceptable, and the wax isn't really anything you want. But I think in that case, you're actually doing the homeowner a service, and you should get paid a little bit for your time. But I don't think that you should be getting paid any $100 an hour or anything that somebody else might want.
Yeah. Now, Kevin posts in the chat column here said if you want to do a cutout or you're interested in cutouts, contact Kevin Rain, but realize that you'll be doing this for about 6 to 8 hours from start to finish. But he's providing an open invitation to any of you who are interested. So Kim, you might want to, give Kevin Rain a buzz. Do you have a membership booklet? Yeah. So Kevin's in there. Kevin Rain, he's in Asheville. So thank you, Kevin, for seemingly inviting people to watch the process. Yeah, it sounds very interesting, but it is time consuming. I mean, like Walt said, it's hot, it's sweaty, potentially, it's not a walk in the woods kind of thing, but it's certainly a something you can check out if you're interested in that. I'm gonna, in the interest of time, just gonna keep us moving here. Last calls on new business before we go to show and tell. Anybody on new business? Let's
I
go to.
do. I guess I do. I guess I do.
Okay, Laura.
Maybe it's apiary stuff. I'm always out of sync, but in the interest of keeping our bees alive, knowing that we can't meet together and do the things we might like to do, anybody have any thoughts about how we're going to make this work? You know what I mean? Are we going to set up some of us show up periodically to just keep them alive through the season, or are we just gonna play it by ear? I don't know.
So why don't you explain what we just did?
You mean
What you and Rod just did? Hang on a second.
He's talked about it. About
Okay.
going through the apiary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
No, so I guess that's just to revisit what the club's responsibility is to the apiary we have and maintaining the grounds and keeping our bees going, even if we can't get together to do the kinds of programs we'd like.
Right. So the question that Laura's bringing up, everybody hopefully understands. We've got 8 hives, right, Rod, out there? That, what do we do? Do we do a few of us who are willing to go out and 6, all right, and monitor them and treat them and pull supers come middle of July for the spring flow? And it's a great question. It's a question that I've asked for actually a number of years. It takes a lot of coordination and willingness to go out and do that. And it's tough to pressure people because people are busy. And now with COVID, it becomes more complicated. So yeah, it's a very good question. You hate like hell to see the bees just die because of neglect. I mean, we'd all jump in and do what we can do to avoid that, I would imagine. That's a good question.
Okay, now you're unmuted. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dennis.
I was going to ask another question. I'll wait till somebody responds to this one first.
Anybody have any thoughts about management of the apiary hives for the next 5 months?
Can we just set up a calendar and people sign up to, go and check, every week, every 2 weeks?
Well, we'd have to probably.
We could do that.
Some sort of a schedule, like you say. When should it be checked? When should supers be added? Who has the supers? It gets logistically up to be a bit of a nightmare, and it all often falls on one person, and that's the problem. Or 2 or 3 people. It's always the problem.
Mr. Ratterman.
You're
Was
unmuted
that
now.
Hi,
Rebecca? Hi,
my
Rebecca.
meeting's done. I'm gonna be I just want it known that I was the one that kept the calendar last year, and I eventually got in a lot of trouble for setting a calendar. I got a lot of grief for doing that because it wasn't convenient and it wasn't well liked. So it needs to be made sure that if you're going to have somebody keeping a calendar, that they are supported by the majority of the beekeepers.
Good point. Thank you, Rebecca. Lauren, do you have your hand up?
Dennis?
Yeah, well, we unmuted. Dennis had a comment.
Yeah, what I was going to suggest was when things maybe just settle down a little bit, maybe within the next month, and we have some protocols and we have some real stuff that we can adhere to, maybe we can have like an apiary inspection where we distance the 6 feet, so everybody, somebody comes up to the hive and does the inspection. Everybody stands back, but you can watch, right? And so we can help some of the new beekeepers to, get the training or the, go ahead.
Well,
Go
they
ahead.
have to have some confidence, right?
They have the confidence that they need, and I think I think that can be done. I think that just we need to maybe see what's going on with the overall protocol for social distancing and stuff. But I think that can be done and implemented in our organization. It's just I don't think we should rush into it, but I think probably within the next month we can do that.
Well, one thing that I'm sure we'll talk about before we all leave is whether this format of Zoom proved useful and whether we should do it again in June. And that could potentially be a time to certainly talk more about this.
Okay, go ahead.
Can I
Go ahead,
speak?
yes.
I can speak. I can't believe that this Zoom wouldn't be worthwhile in another month. I mean, that's crazy to think that this won't be a worthwhile venue for us, all of us.
But it's not
So-
beekeeping.
No, it is beekeeping.
Well, it's not keeping our bees in the apiary alive.
Well, but it is. So tonight's not keeping our bees alive, but the next one will be keeping our bees alive, right? I mean, tonight's a learning experience. Next month will not be a learning experience on how to use Zoom. It'll be how to keep our bees alive, and questions and answers on that stuff. So I don't see that this is the beginning of a whole lot of stuff. I don't see this being the end. I see this being the beginning.
Well, this has proven to be not a bad format, in my opinion, as well. But back to your comment, Laura, about what we should do about the apiary. I mean, I'm certainly willing to go up there in the next couple of weeks. I enjoy it, whether it's my bees or your bees or the Cubs bees. I just find it interesting.
Yeah.
So, but you got to have about 6 other people like me who are interested and want to do it and are willing to pitch in. And a lot of you are, and other people have things going on in their lives, and I get all that. Rod, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm up there all the time, and just because I work there, but also I'll be mowing lawn probably next week because it's starting to get dull. You saw it when we were up there, so I can figure every 2 weeks we can mow lawn, and I can always send out an email and see how many people want to participate. The only problem is, I can email somebody. I can email the whole club saying, hey, I'm going to go up and mow. If anybody wants to bring their weed whacker, come on up. But I think we have to have some kind of a method there where we say, okay, we're only going to have 3 people to take care of the apiary for mowing and weed whacking. So everybody would send an email to me or something saying, okay, I'm interested. And I'll keep a list on who wants to partake, and then maybe pick 3 people this week, and then 3 people 2 weeks later, and 3 more people the following week, and just keep on sending out an email every 2 weeks to go from there. At least the apiary will be kept. Saying that we can't do a short hive inspection in between too.
That's great. If you're willing to send an email out to the group and say, hey, we need to weed whack and mow, who would be willing to meet me on a Saturday or whatever, and then also maybe go that same route with regard to a hive inspection if we want to check the splits we did 2 weeks ago in another 2 weeks to see whether they've taken, and maybe even talk about mite treatment because that one hive was really loaded. I mean, I think it's a great idea if that sounds like a doable proposition.
Okay.
So look for emails from Rod, both in terms of maintenance of the apiary, weed whacking, mowing, and also hive inspection, working with the hives, learning about whatever. I guess, Laura, does that help alleviate a little bit of a concern? That's a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah, no, yes, I'm just, I'm just concerned that there are things that have to be done hands-on, right? That we have a responsibility to maintain the bees that we have, even if some of the other programs that we envisioned are on hold. We still have to, in my estimation, care for the bees and make sure that that's just it's a responsibility. I would be ashamed of myself as a member of a bee club if I didn't have a commitment to take care of the bees. So, and and I'm with Rod and everybody else. I'll show up and we'll do that. But I think it has to be in the forefront. It's a responsibility from the association. The association has a responsibility to care for the bees we have.
Livestock.
It's livestock, right?
You have responsibility to care for your livestock.
Yeah.
The animals that are in your care, custody, and control, you have to have responsibility to take care of them.
It's best.
Doesn't matter if it's bees or calves or.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's a really good point. And so let's maybe try to make that a commitment of all of us here and spreading the word to other members that we really do need to step up. This is a critical time for that. And we're learning as we go too. That's the important thing. We're learning from one another. If you're uncomfortable with the social distancing, certainly that's your right. But I guess I would tend to agree with you. If we maintain that social distancing and we're careful, I personally am comfortable with that. But I don't disagree with anyone who feels uncomfortable for lots of different reasons. So we have to be cognizant of that as well. But let's try to make sure we do take care of our bees.
Good.
That's
Perfect.
important. Okay.
I would agree with that. I agree with that.
Okay, great.
But
Okay. Again, in an effort to keep things moving along, I'm going to go to show and tell. And I'm going to actually call upon Brian Fleischman, if you don't mind, Brian, to talk just for a few minutes about this really cool entrance that he's designed. If you could just comment on that for a few minutes, that'd be great.
Sure, no problem. I think I've got it right here. So what I designed, this is the swarm entrance that I've come up with. And it's printed in a UV sensitive blue filament. This was based upon a couple studies I had read up on that UV blue specifically was an attractive wavelength for bees that I guess some scientists use for studying bees to be able to capture them for doing whatever sort of research they need to do. So I printed this entrance in UV blue. I think, Bob, you mentioned that you showed off the last entrance that I did.
I took that white entrance that you'd given me and put it on the front of my swarm trap that I did a show and tell, I don't know, a year ago. And I mentioned that I got it from you, and everybody thought it was so cool that you had built it from your 3D printer.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, so that one was like a slider form to kind of open and close over the entrance. This one has just got sort of a screw-off lid that on this side I put a cotton ball with lemongrass oil on it. And so then the lid just kind of stays over on that side until you're ready. Once the bees have all moved in and you're ready to close it up, you just unscrew this side and screw it in over on that side and keeps them locked in there until you bring them back home.
Yeah,
and I'm testing out this year just to kind of see if that UV blue makes a difference or not. I've got one location where I have 2 traps out that are probably, what, 20 feet apart or so. One using the old white entrance and one using the new blue entrance. So I can kind of see if there does seem to be any difference with using that UV blue.
Yeah, that's really cool. And Brian was telling me the other day that he's considering taking a master beekeeping course, University of Montana or Montana State, I forget which. And one part of that educational process is you have to do a little study. And so he's going to maybe use his new blue entrance compared to the old non-blue entrance. And that'd be just kind of cool information if you could, come up with some some findings there. It's very interesting. Yeah, thanks, Brian. That was really, really neat.
Yep.
And I'm going to also then ask Walt. I think I saw you hold something up when we started the meeting. Do you want to show us what you got there?
Yes. In the May issue of Bee Culture magazine, they had this article. Do-it-yourself bee collectors for mites. So I made one. I followed their instruction. Get back here far enough. Oh, wait a minute. I got to reset my boardroom here. Okay. This is what it is. This is a frame with honeybees on it. You take that, put it in, put it in this contraption, you shake it, and down here is a quart jar where the bees come to it. You have a screen lid which you put on the bees, on the jar. And now you can put your sugar in there or whatever you're going to kill the bees with. Shake them all up, and then you get the mites on the outside of the jar. I'd like to give this to the Suffolk County Beekeepers Association, so that anybody that wants to use it can take their frame of bees and shake it in and do their mite count. But I don't know who I should pass it off to. But anybody that wants to take it, they can take it and check their mites that way.
Well, that's really great, Walt. That's very kind of you to offer that to the club. Well, if we're going to be doing some, mite inspections and treatments in the next a month or so, I don't know, we'll see. That might be a perfect time to put it through its paces at the apiary.
I can bring it up the apiary once you let me know when somebody's going to be up there.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. That's really cool.
I also have one other comment. Laura mentioned about getting to the newspapers about swarm collecting and other insects and so forth. I have collected through Bee Culture magazine 2 or 3 articles on public notices about honeybees and about stinging insects. I'll try to make copies of that and bring it up there and give it to whoever wants to be in charge of it to fill out some of these notices and send them into the Post Journal regarding what the bee culture suggests that we talk to the local media about honeybee swarms and so forth. So I'll bring that with along too.
Okay, great. Anybody else have any other show and tell items?
I got one other thing, Bob, that I'd like to show off.
Great.
So just because this is going to go away through work, I was able to get. So this is Better Bees. I don't know if anyone's seen this on there. It's the honey DNA kit that they offer. So basically, you can send in a sample of your honey in for genetic testing, and they'll come back and tell you exactly which flowers are found in your honey. And they send you back a report of exactly which ratios it all is. And so with so many beekeepers in the surrounding area, I'll definitely share those results with all of you so you can kind of get a better idea of exactly, what flowers the bees are hitting. I was able to get 2 of them, one for my spring honey and one for my fall honey. So I'll definitely share those results with everybody when I get those back.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Yeah, neat. So it cost something to have the analysis done?
The kit's very expensive. Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't have been buying this if my work didn't offer to do it as part of the educational program we're trying to do at the school. It's $300 per kit.
Mm-hmm. And you have not yet seen the results of any of the honeys yet?
No, I haven't even sent it back yet. I just got the packages last week, so I'll be sending that in here, as soon as possible. And they did mention it was going to take a little bit before I get the results back.
So how much do you give them? Like, 50 milliliters or something, or a little bottle, or?
Yeah, it's a little bottle, Henry.
Okay, interesting.
It's just about that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. Kimberly.
I've been playing with some stuff you can do for value added, and the beeswax wraps are really the in thing now. So I made some out of my own, some of the cappings that I cleaned, and you take a little pine resin and it takes the place of plastic wrap. So you take like this and and you can, there you go. In place of plastic, it's reusable. The only thing you can't use is like raw meat and such, because you can't clean it to the extent that it needs for meat. But it's kind of a neat idea I've been using for, like I said, value added that we could do with cappings and wax.
That's really great. My daughters gave me some wax wrap for my birthday or Christmas a year or two ago, and it sat there for probably 6 months. I'm like, I'm never going to use this. Well, then I started wrapping my sandwiches in it, and it's so well used now. So it's great. It's really neat stuff, and plus it's something that came from your bees. It makes great gifts, and it's green. And what would be really fun, Kim, is if you could, maybe for a future meeting, if anybody's interested in learning about how to do that, do a little song and dance as to how you went about doing that. That'd be very cool.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I could do that. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. That's really, really interesting. Walt, you had a comment?
Yes. Where did it go?
Yeah.
I hung out a bee trap. I'd like one of those entrance reducers to put on it if you got any available.
Absolutely.
My trap is only up about 6 feet in the air. It's supposed to be up about 10 to 12 feet, but I couldn't reach that high. My wife doesn't want me climbing the ladder. But I just put it out here a couple days ago. So I'm trying. But yeah, I'd like to have an entrance guard on it if you got one available. I'll try it out.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Excellent. Hey, great show and tell stuff tonight. This is excellent. Anybody else? All right, great. So next on the agenda, we're getting toward the end here, swarm report. Now, who was it? Rod, you said no, who said they had some swarms? Somebody. Oh, Brian. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Brian.
What do you guys usually share? I caught one swarm today. It was from my own hives. I was lucky. It only went about 7 feet away from my hives. It was about 4 feet off the ground, so it was real easy to catch.
Yeah, those are the ones you like.
What'd you do with it?
I put it in another box I had, and so they seem to be doing great. I also got my traps out, and I went looking at those today, and there was actually quite a bit of activity at a lot of my traps. So I think we're definitely getting into swarm season.
Cool.
Yeah, so Saturday, sunny day, looks like could be a good swarm day, because they'll be from Sunday, Monday, they won't be doing much. But yeah, right, in the next week, I suspect things are going to start popping.
So when you put a swarm trap up, is there something you look for, a specific area? What are you thinking when you're putting one up?
Me personally? So I'm usually looking for a nice open field that's got some wildflowers in it, that ideally maybe has some water source nearby, something that is going to be most likely to be a perfect space for bees to be. And so if I can find those locations, then it's a matter of trying to, figure out if I can get a hold of the people who own the land to kind of allow it. But yeah, I'm typically just looking for a nice tree line that's running alongside of an open field that has wildflowers and has water nearby. really, that's just all I'm looking for.
And
So-
Brian's actually been very successful, I think, in catching swarms the last few years. Very impressive. You've gotten more than most people I've ever encountered. And I think a lot of it is, of course, as we all know, Tom Seeley has published a lot on, what is it, the 40-liter volume is kind of key to the size of the trap. And but even more important, I think having it on the edge of a field, yeah, seems to be, not that you can't find bee trees in the middle of the woods. I found them there too, but oftentimes, you know, edge of fields is good. Yeah. Laura.
Yeah, I just wanted to, you mentioned Tom Seeley, and that's what I would refer people to. He talks about the optimal capacity of a swarm trap. You know, he's done a ton of research on stuff. The height of a swarm trap is something like 12, 15 feet off the ground. If you're looking at the preferences for honeybees looking for a new site, there's some pretty clear preferences. So it's all available at the Cornell website, and I think we've made it available through the beekeepers. But you know what? They'll move into a shoebox and an old spare tire. You know, the truth is, bees will go where they go. I guess you invite them. You do the best you can to invite them to the spot that you want them to live, and then you accept that they have their own lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll do their thing.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments on swarming? Okay. The second to last item, open discussion. So how about just questions, thoughts, comments? Some of you have done splits lately. Certainly it's not too early to do that now, I don't think. We're getting into some warm weather. I did a split 2 weeks ago, and I'm not going to open them up for another 2 weeks. I'm tempted, but you know, they say don't touch them. But I've split even end of April. We've had some cold weather, and they've requeened fine, but maybe I've just been lucky. But splitting is, of course, is a fun, inexpensive way to learn about beekeeping and bee biology, and it just never fails to amaze me when I can go back after a month and open it up and there's a queen. It's just like, how did that happen? Amazing. Laura.
Yeah, hey, Barry, it's a question for Barry, because Barry's the guy that's, you know, I'm interested because I've been really reluctant to do a lot of manipulating because the weather's been fluctuating, and I didn't want to get caught in a spot where I had too few bees to protect, you know, to create warmth to protect a young colony. So how are you splitting? I know you're doing grafting, right? And how are things going for you?
I just started splitting. It's been too cold to rear many queens. It's hard to graft. My first 2 rounds of grafts were not very successful. Because when it gets down in the 30s and 20s,
yeah,
the grafts are on a whole frame, so you only get I get like 10 or 20 out of 45. So
yeah, and I haven't seen a lot of, you know, we went through our hives 10 days ago maybe, and we didn't see a lot of drones. I mean, I thought the drones were kind of behind a little bit too. I didn't see a lot of indication that there would be mature drones right now. So seems like it's been kind of slow.
I've put pollen on my bees since March. March was better than April and May so far. So my hives are ready to swarm. Half of my hives are ready to swarm. The other half are singles that were overwintered that are filling out doubles. The doubles that overwintered are mostly in triples, except for the ones I started splitting. So I have a lot of drones.
Good.
I saw drones probably three weeks ago too. Quite a few.
That's the deal with splitting. Like if you can't set your bees up to multiply until there's sufficient drones to mate well. So it's always a gamble.
Yeah, I don't think the queens would have much opportunity to fly now to May anytime before now.
Right. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Walt?
Yes, I've set up a couple two-frame nukes other years, where I've just taken the frame of eggs and brood out of the hive and put in another frame of honey and let them raise their own queen. And I found that be very successful. With a two-frame nuke, it's a small volume of air to keep warm, where if you put it into a 10-frame hive or a 5-frame hive, there's a lot of cold air there that they've got to generate a lot of heat to keep the brood warm so they can nurture the brood into the adult bee. So the advantage of having a two-frame nuke to start them up is it's that much a smaller volume of warm air for the bees to maintain the warmth to. And I found that helps to speed up the development of a new queen. So just take a frame of brood and some eggs, and they'll raise their own queen. But they'll do it because they don't have that large volume of cold air to try to keep the whole house warm.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Rod?
Yeah, I just want to say everybody should be looking at their Gmails or their emails. I know Dennis has been sending out a lot of information, and it's good information. What is it? Better Bee is what, half price this year for subscription? I know I'll be signing up for that. Or is it Bee Culture? I don't know which one it is.
Bee Culture.
I'll be getting emails. It's interesting facts and
You're cutting out a little bit, Rod. I
that's
don't
it.
know.
Yeah, I don't know if the wind stream or I know connection back on, so I don't know.
Well,
But I want to thank Dennis for all the information supplies.
so I think what Rod was saying was, Dennis had sent something out through Gmail, one of which was that Bee Culture Magazine is running a sale, right? 50% off, is it, for the year subscription? And they also put a lot of stuff online too, I think. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed to either American Bee Journal or Bee Culture, those are really good periodicals. There's always good articles in there about beekeeping and some pretty high level science articles actually on some of those. I get American Bee Journal, and some of those articles are pretty tough to read, but interesting. We're nearing the 9 o'clock hour, so any other comments anybody would like to make? Otherwise, we may want to consider adjourning for this month. Well,
Just thank you to everybody. It's been an experience, and
I'd like to see another meeting next month like this.
Yep. This is good.
yeah.
This
So
is working.
maybe should we maybe shoot for the second Thursday of July or June, like we typically do. This is the second Thursday of May. So as I'm seeing heads shaking, so anybody opposed to that idea? Okay, yeah, use your thumbs up. There you go. I do have to say, there were several of us that met 2 or 3 times via this Zoom to see how would this work. And I have to say, this was much better than I envisioned. This was actually pretty darn good. You guys were great. I hope you found it helpful. So let's plan to reconvene again via Zoom on
June 11th.
June 11th, right? And look for emails from Rod with respect to apiary work, both maintenance and maybe some hive inspections. As far as swarming goes, if you find you have a swarm available that you don't want, if you want to contact me, I could be the conduit to which I would, contact folks who might be interested. I guess I'd be willing to do that. So here's what, let's do this. If you're interested in a swarm, send me an email and give me your address so I know you're in Forestville or Randolph or, Gary or wherever. And then if I hear from anyone, I would be willing to call and say, hey, Gail, I have somebody who's got a swarm. Do you want it? But let me know if you want one. So email me. And then if you have swarms that you find and you're willing to provide a club member with one, call me and I'll see what I can do. How's that?
That's great.
Okay, and I will charge a small fee. I'm just kidding.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn the May 14th meeting of the Chautauqua County Beekeepers?
A motion.
Okay, second.
And
All right, great. Thank you all for coming. And if you would like a recorded copy of YouTube link, I know how to do this. I've done a million of them in the last 8 weeks. I'm gonna save this, and if you want to tell me, and I will send you all the link, and you can save it for your grandkids or whatever.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you very
everybody.
much, Bob.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye.